Toastmaster and fellow Toastmaster members and distinguished guests, thank you guys for joining us at our open house. I typically like to go up front because I feel like I'm kind of caged in the back, so you don't mind if I move the furniture a little bit.
Oh, so it's basically like Raul right there.
So the title of my speech is A Dash of Gratitude. So someone once said, enjoy the little things. For one day, you may look back and realize that those little things were actually big things. Paul Frank Clark said, be grateful for what you have. I'm sorry. Paul Clark once said, be grateful for what you have, because then you'll know what you're going to get. People aren't always wired to be grateful. Being grateful is a skill, and like any skill, it requires practice. Let's take a moment to think back on a time when we were truly grateful for something. It doesn't always have to be the big things. It can actually be the small things. For me, whenever I'm walking through the airport and I see a man or woman, a serviceman or woman in uniform, I immediately feel this sense of gratitude. Just something comes over me. Gratitude, again, isn't always about the big things. Now, as I asked you to take a moment to think about the things that you're grateful for, we probably thought about the house that we live in, the car that we drive, or we probably thought about the great job that we have. But did we think about the simple pleasures in life, like the ability to have eyes to see, or feet to run, or hands to feel? Those things are a part of our gratitude bucket as well. As you imagine your simple signs of gratitude, again, it's not always about the big things. Did you know that there was power in gratitude, and that gratitude and happiness are intertwined, and rightfully so? And that experts say that in order to boost your level of contentment, you should boost your level of gratitude? Did you know that no one's ever depressed and grateful at the same time? Something to think about. So when people see me, they often assess me. And the first thing they say is, I like your shoes. I like your bag. I like your hair. You got a great job. That girl, she's got a lot to be grateful for. She's beaming with gratitude. But what people don't realize is that it took me a long time to get to this place. You see, at the age of 3, I lost my birth mom. My sister was 4. She died at the young age of 18 of lupus. By the time she was 16, she was married with 2 daughters and on the brink of a divorce. And so my grandmother and my family had to make a decision. Do we send these 2 girls to foster care, or do we bring them here and we raise them ourselves? My dad was 20 years old, and he was a serviceman at the time, and he wasn't willing or ready to raise 2 little girls. And so my grandmother stepped in, and she became mom. Now, by the time she became mom, she had raised all of her kids, and they were parents of their own, and she was a grandmother. And so she was in no position to be taking on this responsibility. Not only that, her health was bad. She was 300 pounds, and she never left the house. My sister and I, we assumed the role of the parent. We did all the grocery shopping, we did all the chores, but we were grateful that my grandmother took us in and that she assumed this responsibility. I struggled as a child not having my birth mom. You see, as daughters, we form our sense of identity by our parents, especially by our moms. I didn't know what I was going to look like. What was I going to be like? In some cultures, it's not uncommon for your dad not to be there, but it's your mom who walks you to school on the first day, and it's your mom who's cheering in the stands when you get your first award. And those things stuck with me up until my mid-20s. And I worked at the corporate office of Domino's Pizza, and I met a lady by the name of Ruth Beauchamp. And Ruth Beauchamp and I worked on a project together. And I learned while working on that project that Ruth too had lost her mom at the young age of 5. And she struggled with her identity. One of the things she gave me is she gave me this book called Motherless Daughters. And I read this book and I felt like I had that aha moment. I felt like that book was speaking to me. It gave me a lot of answers to a lot of questions that I had. And it gave me a lot of clarity to a lot of things in my life. And one of the things it taught me is that I am grateful. That regardless of my circumstances, regardless of the situation, that I do have some things to be thankful for. Now, it was through that book that I learned a lot about myself, but I also learned a lot about my situation. I accepted the fact that God had a plan for me, that it wasn't my plan, that it wasn't the plan that everyone else thought I should have. And I realized that it was truly a blessing that my grandmother came into my life and that she adopted my sister and I, and that she taught us to be strong, independent women. My sister is a cardiac nurse in Washington, D.C., and doing very well. As I've gotten older, I've learned to be more grateful, but I've learned to be more humble as well. I've learned that gratitude is has lessened the pain, and it's lessened the loss. And over the years, I've adopted a few simple steps to help me remember and maintain my sense of gratitude. I like to journal. I like to write things down. Sometimes when you write things down, you have the opportunity to go back and reflect, because sometimes we forget the things that we're grateful for. And sometimes people say, well, how often do you journal? Do you do it once a day? Do you do it once a month? And I say, do what's convenient for you. But once you write it down, you have the opportunity to look back and see those things. I also like meditating. I like gratitude meditation, because in meditation, you clear your mind and you clear your thoughts and you control your breathing. But in gratitude meditation, you're thinking about only those things that you're grateful for. So meditation already comes with benefits, but gratitude meditation is a double dose of benefits. I also like to send a gratitude letter. So when I got into my 30s, I sent a letter to my 4 aunts who helped my grandmother in taking care of us. And I let them know how much I appreciated them. I didn't tell them they were going to get it, but it was a nice surprise for them when they received it, and they called me up because I got to tell them all the things that I never said. And the last thing I like to do is create a photo collage. I want to see pictures of things. So I like to take pictures of where I'm going. I like to take pictures of just the simple things I see. I take walks regularly, so I like to walk around and just take pictures of nature's beauty. Those things remind me of the simple life's gratitude, or the simple life's graciousness. There's also a poem that I wanted to read that I think ties in really well to this topic. And it's called The Dash, because the topic of my speech was a dash of gratitude. And it said, I read of a man who stood to speak at a funeral of a friend. He referred to the dates on the tombstone from beginning to end. He noted that first came the date of birth and spoke the following date with tears. But he said what mattered most of all was the dash between those years. For that dash represents all the time that they spent alive on earth. And only those who love them know what that line is worth. For it matters not how much we own, the cars, the cash, the house. What matters most is how we live and love and how we spend our dash. So think about this long and hard. Are there things you want to change? For you never know how much time is left that can still be rearranged. If we could just slow down enough to consider what's true and real, and always try to understand the way other people feel, and be less quick to anger and show appreciation more, and love the people in our lives like we've never loved before. If we treat each other with respect and more often wear a smile, remembering that this special dash may only last a little while. So when your eulogy is being read and your life actions to rehash, would you be proud of the things they say about how you spent your dash? So in ending, I wanted to give you an update. So I told you that my dad at the age of 20 wasn't ready to raise 2 girls. And I always struggled with that because he ended up getting out of the military and he remarried and he had 2 sons. And I always questioned why he didn't take my sister and I. Well, my dad and his oldest son are both serving life sentences in the Michigan State Prison for 2 separate crimes of murder. They sit by each other side by side. And once a year, I go visit them. I actually leave tomorrow. And every time I visit them, the first question I ask them when I sit at the table is, what are you grateful for? And so one of the things I've learned is that if they have something to be grateful for, then so too do I. Thank you.